Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special Hour Comm Lead featuring Dr. Ekin Yasin, our very own Communication Leadership Director. My name is Jazz Espiritu, and I'm Head of Program Affairs here in Comm Lead. In the next hour, Akin will be sharing and discussing her vision and goals for Comm Lead. Our Head of Strategy, Alex Stonehill, and I have prepared a few questions for Akin to dive a bit deeper, and we've left the last part of the hour to answer your questions. A few ground rules before we get started. We ask that everyone remain muted during this conversation, but encourage you all to use the chat function to communicate with one another and Alex and I and Akin. Please keep in mind that this conversation is about the big picture of Comm Lead and its future and goals. So any questions that might dive into the detailed protocols such as class registration will not be prioritized. If you are in cohort 20 and have those questions, we encourage you to join the live Q&A event happening tomorrow at 4:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to answer those questions regarding your start here in Comm Lead. Details for that event can be found in your email. Till then, we ask that everyone's questions focus on the big picture that is Comm Lead. Lastly, we at Comm Lead want to remind you that Black Lives Matter. The ruling to not charge and hold accountable the police who killed Breonna Taylor is unjust, and we deeply mourn her and the countless Black people whose lives were taken due to police brutality. Our hearts, our thoughts, our values, teachings, and actions are with Breonna Taylor and her friends and family. Thank you again for being here. We do encourage questions for Akin, so please leave them in the chat with your name, your relationship to the program, and your question. We'll get to as many as we can. With that, I now welcome our Comm Lead Director, Dr. Ekin Yasin.
Thank you all. It's great to be with all of you. And I'm very excited to talk with you today. And we'll also touch upon the circumstances and the injustices that Jazz just mentioned. And I would like to share that. I would like to share my thoughts later on as I'm reflecting on where we're going as a program as well. And indeed, Black Lives Matter, and we are in a very particular situation. And I wanted to focus this conversation today, and it will be a conversation. I wish that we were together in person, and I wish that we could reflect on this moment together. Not virtually, but in a different setting. But we're here, and I want to take the time to walk you through some of the things that I'm thinking at this moment today, and to talk to you about what I envision our program and what kind of a role I envision our program playing a role in changing the world we live in. So with that, I just want to also encourage you, like Jazz did, to use the chat function. I'm looking at it as I'm talking to you. So if you want to say hi to each other or share with those of you who were able to participate today, who you are and how you relate to our program. You might be a friend, you might be an alumni, you might be a student, you might be a faculty or staff. Please do so because we want to create as much community as possible in any opportunity we get. And before I start kind of sharing with you a quick vision, and we want to highlight your questions, and I want to engage with you as much as I can today. I just want to share my gratitude to Hansen Hussein, who's with us today, co-founder of our program, and also my colleagues. I've had the privilege to work with Comm Lead for the past 4 years, first as an associate director, then as a co-director. But during that entire time, I taught many classes at the program, particularly the core class, which allowed me to meet with a lot of the new students that started the program and watch their journey. So I want to take a moment and thank, in particular, Hansen for bringing the program to where it is today, a very well-established program that led to some of the most important conversations of our time with very many constituents. So thank you, Hansen. So with that, I want this first few minutes, again, as I said, to be conversational and share a little bit of my thinking, and particularly why I'm so excited to be a part of this program, and some things that I hope we can collectively be thinking about in the coming year and in response to the moment. As some of you may know, again, I'm the director of the Communication Leadership Program, and I am a lifelong educator. And I'll talk a little bit about that maybe when questions come. Again, I want to dedicate the next 10 minutes to just talk a little bit more conceptually and these types of things that we should be thinking about. But as an educator, I truly believe in the magic of the learning environment. I see places we learn as laboratories of life where we can talk and build the types of future and practice we aspire for. A place where we bring who we are, we listen, we learn and collaborate. And because it's a laboratory, it allows us to, before it happens in our actual societies, apply our thinking, take risks, experiment, and build an ideal world. And think about initiatives that we should take in that world with a community committed to the same endeavor. I see Comm Lead as a laboratory as such, where we can learn and think together. We're in that lab right now at a very particular moment, an unprecedented moment with a number of different crises ongoing in our world. It's an exceptional time in the history of the world as well. This past 7 months have altered our lives. We have new routines, new conditions, new expectations, new approaches. Zoom has become a verb very quickly. I don't know how many of you spend how many hours on Zoom-like platforms. I did some thinking before I came here today. Mine is on average 5 hours a day with other interactive activities that I do online. Um, and you can also share with us how many hours you spent on these platforms and what's your limit. And in a way, we are constantly connected and looking at a screen, but it is still a screen, and it's rather interesting. Um, so that's happening. We're using, and we have a lot of increased screen time. We are facilitating our conversations through certain technologies and platforms. But oddly, we're also more connected sometimes to our world. We are looking out, we are collaborating together, we're protesting together, we're actually interacting with our nature more. I'm currently in Turkey, where there were strict lockdowns, where we could not go out onto the street over the weekends without the exception of our immediate vicinity. And in those weekends, I looked up a lot, walked around, and appreciated whatever surrounded me. And I even, at that time, travel was completely restricted in this country, forgot that there were planes. And I realized that planes existed when I was shocked by seeing one in the air a couple months later when they resumed. So we are reappreciating things that existed. We are relearning things. We are readjusting. On top of that, we're also in a global state of concern. No matter where you are, a virus lives amongst you. We may have relatives, family members who are vulnerable. Our jobs are vulnerable. At the same time, we're at a period in the US and around the world, but more particularly US, that is at a reckoning where we see ignited movement and action to erase racism that's complemented with the continuation of such racism. We have experienced so much of it together. And I really believe that our program and concepts of communication and leadership is really important at this moment. So I'm really looking forward to us gathering, sharing, and learning together in our program at this moment. Going back to what I was saying, a learning space is an open space, and we are forced into a new era, even if we want it or not. And what better way to do so together at this moment with the tools of our program provides all of us. So I want to quickly tell you three things that I think we should be focusing on immediately, and maybe in the near term and long term as well. These are things that we've been working on in our program from its original conception, and now 20 years ago. So they're not new, but I think there's a renewed urgency around these particular concepts in consideration of the moment that we find ourselves with. So these three things are, the first of them is how to connect. That is the essence of our program, right? How we tell stories, how we engage communities, how emerging and digital technologies facilitate such connection today more enhanced than ever. And in this moment, it's a little bit complex because we connect so much, yet at times perhaps feel more isolated than ever, because more so than ever, we are often physically distant. I think we're going to continue the pursuit of building conversations, modeling best practices in our events, in our interactions at our program, in how to cultivate connections that lead to care for each other. That is, I think, really important at this moment. Last March, at our annual Connects event that we host every year, hopefully many of you can join us this year as well. We planned our event around the topic called future work. Who knew at the time that that future was so near? So we touched upon a number of topics, as we always do in our program. The future of digital technologies, how digital environments facilitate new connections, how people can work remotely in the future, how we can have more inclusive leadership practices, how we can educate people that we work with, how we can ensure equitable pay, how we can ensure an anti-racist learning environment. Many things that, again, we discussed are things that we are actively working on right now. Our state of connecting online will likely become somewhat permanent. Companies like Pepsi, among many others, are moving towards distributed teams, giving autonomy to their workers to choose where they want to work from. At the same time, they are thinking about how to make those employees working distantly to remain still connected. So connection will be at the forefront at the organizations and individuals thinking. Connection is all about communication and many things we do in this program. In this newly configured world, how do we ensure enduring bonds? What will be the role of stories and technologies we study in this program in connecting our world in a truly authentic way? How do we build communities in this environment? Connect to them, to our issues, to our needs. I really believe that our community will be pivotal in understanding how we connect and in building pathways for us to connect in the ways in which I outlined. The second is how to be human. I'm sure many of you heard in the past few years, particularly in the past decade, the conversation around technology needing to be more human. Amongst existing and current technologies, its design, its conception. And we've been also a hub for thinking about content, design, community building with this notion of humans, by humans and for humans. I sometimes, well, actually, I'll be honest, most of the time have a problem with the word human, as it does not necessarily do enough to highlight the complexities and differences amongst humans in the world. When we're thinking, when we're thinking practice in our field, we have to lead conversations about a true understanding of what it means to be human in this moment in the world. We're in a world where technology promises still to solve a lot of our problems, but there is a global, still digital divide. Our experiences vary from country to country, from neighborhood to neighborhood, from one person to the next. Some humans are subject to racism, others are racist. We do not see yet a humanity that is common, that is united. There's no lived experience of being human. At the same time, there's extreme, of course, variety and richness of cultures, of experiences, of countries. So through our global mindset and commitment to building an anti-racist world where we may perhaps believe to be the promise of being a collective human entity, I believe that our program will also bring this thoughtfulness to the conversation. The fact that we do not have a singular experience of being human, and it still very much matters about our position in the world. The third is how to be accountable. At our organizations, but in general at this moment, pretty much everywhere in the world, how we make our actions sustainable matter more than ever. That's, I think, what accountability is. And that is a communication and leadership challenge. We have to think about accountability and our focus on digital media, content, emerging technology, and community. And we are at the center of it. In thinking of ways to hold someone accountable, we have to remember that we communicate not just with our words, but with our actions. How to be accountable for ourselves and to each other is a question we have to answer every day. How do we hold others accountable? What communication tools can we use to ensure that accountability happens everywhere in our government, all around, in our governments all around the world, companies that impact our lives, companies that we work for? How to be accountable for our environment is still something that we have to think about every day. Again, for this too, our individual accountability is important, but also of the accountability of companies and governments to ensure the sustenance of the world. More importantly, how do we build or rebuild an accountability structure, particularly today when we're thinking about the events of today, more important than, we understand that this is more important than ever. And how do we ensure justice? How should we react to the lack of accountability? We are going to think about these together, and they may seem like abstract deliberations, but all these three realms in my vision for the program is places where we can practice what we preach, how we engage with our community, how we react, how we build our events. Our approach to learning will set an example for the professional and personal worlds we are all part of. Our community is a laboratory for an ideal world that we want to build in. And I want to open pathways for us to be able to explore and experiment together as much as we can to make that vision possible. It may sound ambitious, but my belief is that due to the unique intersection of creativity, purpose, and care we have in this community, we will lead conversations in these realms, prepare all of you to bring those conversations back to your worlds, back to your context, and whatever sector that may be in, and for us to be a global leader in our field, leading those conversations. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to engaging in conversation with you and answering your questions. So I'll turn it over to Jazz to get their questions now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ekin. Thank you so much for sharing your vision and future of Comm Lead. With that, Alex and I have a list of questions, but we also want to get to any questions you have as well. So please ask your questions in the chat by stating your name, your relationship to the program, and your question. With that, I hand it over to Alex.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ekin, for your framing words and telling us a little bit more about where we're going. I've been affiliated with the Comm Lead program since like 2010. So it's been a long time. And in that time, there's definitely been a transformation of, so much of the communication technology has been transforming our world. And I think our attitudes as a society and maybe as a program and as students in that program have shifted from a very optimistic, like this technology will connect us, unite us, maybe save us from some of our other challenges, to a much more skeptical perspective for a lot of people in the last 3 or 4 years. So I was curious how you see our programs like curricular emphasis shifting during that time to reflect that broader shift, and where you think it's going in the future.
Thank you, Alex. I think, so indeed, we're seeing a shift, and I think there always have been those of us or those of you who have had questions and have been critical for the types of entities and tools that we use, or used it with a kind of a questioning eye, right? And I think we are at a turning point and we are seeing that turning point because people who are in those entities also now have to bring that critical eye. Right? I think that's one of the most concrete shifts that I'm observing, is due to, of course, the communal and societal pushes towards change, accountability, fairness, equity, building truly representative organizations of the types of communities it serves. There has been an existential rethinking of these entities. And I'm going back to not the word human, I'm going to use the word people, right? Technologies are created by people for people. So a lot of conversations today around data and technology are also about valuability of such structures, because it reflects the very community and very world of the people who create them. I think for a while we kind of we kind of othered these technologies like as if they were not a part of our world, or they existed outside of us and they had a function to serve for us outside of us. But now we're realizing that they are by people. I mean, and they were always by people, right? And they play consequences for people and their lives. So my perspective is the critical lens with which, the questioning lens with which we approach technology today should have been from the get-go, and should be our approach to everything that we interact with. I think we're just leveling the playing field for technology and technologies in our world, and holding it as accountable as anything else that interacts with us every day.
That was a really great question, Alex. And I can see the 10 years of experience in Comm Lead showing up in that. And I think that that was wonderful. And again, great answer. I, on the other hand, have only had 1 year experience here at Comm Lead. And a lot of the work that I do is around student engagement, peer-to-peer work, including the orientation events and graduation. And so my question for you, Ekin, what are some of your favorite memories of student engagement in Comm Lead? Another way of also looking at this are, what are your favorite events and how do you see these events fitting into your vision of Comm Lead?
All of them is the answer, but I'm going to, of course, for the sake of time management, pick a few highlights. But it is on the record that I love all of them. I love the opportunity to connect with you all in person or virtually. But some of the highlights has been our Screen Summit, which was virtual last year. And in the previous 2 years, it was in person. It's an amazing outlet for our students to showcase their work. For those of you who are new students or who are not familiar with our program, it's an end of year event where we basically showcase student projects and students talk, we gather together, and we really get to appreciate the scope of amazing work our community does. And because our community also does work for some of the most impactful organizations, or organizations that are trying to make a meaningful change in the world, in such events, not only do we get to kind of reconnect, rekindle, and enjoy one another's company, but really learn about important issues. So that's one, Screen Summit for sure. And then, of course, the start of the year. For me, a first day of class always reminds me, and also in orientation too, for those of you in cohort 20 who are part of our community and who will be joining us on Sunday and who are joining us right now, it's kind of a very particular energy, right? We're trying to figure out where we're all at. We're usually coming back from our own environments and trying to make sense of our communal identity, not who I am, but who we are becomes a moment, and we get to kind of define that we together, and that's extremely exciting and exhilarating for me. So I would say the beginning and the end, and the whole year too. So I can't pick. This is a very hard question, Jazz, but those two are kind of like how we define who we are, and then we celebrate who we are constantly. So it's a kind of a cycle of the year that keeps on going every year.
Like that pan enthusiasm. Every day is the best. So I wanted to maybe stay on events because there was a question I wanted to ask about that. And there are some questions in the chat, including one from Brianna, who I was in class with this summer, in a great class. Hi, Brianna. About do we see any foreseeable meetups in 2021 when perhaps once there's a vaccine, perhaps, and she's expressing her sadness that orientation is virtual this year. And that kind of dovetails into something that I wanted to ask that I know we've talked about a lot is, what unique value do you think that this program brings? So maybe you can address the logistical part of what you're gonna ask, but also talk a little bit more about like what value you see the program bringing in this moment where, social distancing has our in-person classes and events canceled for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Brianna, for your kind of merged questions. And this is a really important question, right? We are at a moment everywhere around the world. We're trying to understand these new norms and how we navigate and how we build meaningful connections and how we connect. And Unfortunately, we do not have the timeline, and we will go with the guidance that we get from the university about what we can do, and whatever we can do at that time with that guidance, we'll do, is all I can say about the timeline of when we can meet up again. Having said that, I've been thinking in preparation for the orientation and for today, and in conversations with colleagues and some of you, I think we're at a unique position that many of our engagements, with the exception of the deep miss we have of being next to one another, that we could replicate them virtually because we really took an intentional approach. I mean, one of the interesting things about Comm Lead is our content is the moment, right? How we connect, how we stay connected, how we build community, how we use different digital media. This is who we are. So I think we've already exhibited very many ways where we stay connected, where we get to know one another on a first name basis. And we are going to, Brianna, stay tuned. I think, yes, you're cohort 20. So we are, one of the things that I want to assure you of is everything that we've done in terms of events will happen. All of them will happen. And so we are not going to miss out any events. If anything, we're very intentional to build smaller congregation, mentorship, interaction opportunities for all of you with fellow students and alumni, so that there's an added layer for our community to stay connected. On top of that, these types of social hours, our availability to all of you will kind of be an added element in these times. I assure that we'll do our utmost best to invent, to think, and to work within the boundaries that we're given. So in that way, I can at least assure you that everything you would have done last year, you will still do. You will still get all the events, all career support, everything. It's just adjusted at the moment. But again, we are working with whatever guideline we receive, and those guidelines will shape any old opportunity that we can add on to our already robust offerings throughout the year. I hope this answers, and please feel free to ask more questions in the chat as well, if anything that you want me to clarify, or a particular segment of those events that you want me to talk about as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ekin. We actually have another question here also from Stacy, second year grad student. Question is, are there any actionable social projects we hope to see in the future?
Social projects, yes. For sure, I think one of the, so many of you know that we've been very much involved at this moment through our COVID consultancy, which is a student-led initiative with the social world that we're part of, and our students are reacting and working. We're going to continue that pursuit. We are, and our work also with Restart Partners is continuing, and you're hearing from Alex about all sorts of different projects that we're doing that has impact in the world. We are very much in conversation with organizations, with communities in need, that need different services that we can offer. Again, consultancy is an amazing outlet that we created, but we're here to listen to. We will keep building on those types of projects, volunteering opportunities, work opportunities, and partner program opportunities as well throughout the year, and at least in autumn, but I would foresee it for the year too. We will be involved in many initiatives that relate us directly to work towards redefining our world, supporting communities, and supporting initiatives that are related to the difficulties faced at this moment. So yes.
Sorry, my turn again, isn't it? Let's see. So I'm going to make sure I catch up to the last one. Lots of great conversation in here. Actually, can I plug in another one question that I wanted to ask? We have some alumni in attendance here, some more recent and some that go back a little further, that are as long-standing folks as I am. So I was wondering, for those newer folks who might have never had you in a class, Ekin, or gotten to interact with you at an event, what would you say is like the best way for new or for alumni to connect with you in various different spaces and maybe get to know you a little bit better as you take the helm of their alma mater here?
Yeah, of course. We are hoping to have a number of focused alumni conversations throughout the year, small group conversations, as we are getting into our 20th year. And this program is all of ours. So those of you who've been in the program 20 years ago, and those of you who've been in the program 10 years ago, in all walks of life, we've defined this journey together. So we are going to be intentionally reaching out to you around interest areas or around cohorts to kind of get to know you. So before you reach out to me, I may reach out to you, but so you may hear from me. So if you see my name in an email box, please respond. I'd love to meet you. So we have intentional plans to meet with you and for me to meet particularly cohorts that I have not personally taught or was a part of the program during their time. But in addition to that, and I can drop it in the chat, I have a Calendly link. So I am available every week across different times to all of you. My availability and scheduling time with me, if you want to talk about something, if you want to bring a perspective to the program, or if you want to talk to me about how the program was, or something you're working on that we should be focusing on right now, we really value your opinion. So feel free to schedule a time with me anytime. But having said that, we are going to do some intentional community building amongst cohorts and alumni throughout the year, just for me to also get to know you, because that's a priority for me.
All right. Okay. Looking over. Well, I've got one. Just as an opportunity to get to know you for the folks here in this room. Starting your directorship virtually has some advantages and challenges, I imagine. What's one challenge you faced during this time and one advantage you've taken?
I think this, many of you have been hearing this from many events you've been attending with us, with others. If you thought that you could control your world and your environment, you know that you can't. Quick anecdote, Alex and Jazz know this, but right before this conversation started, where I am, I'm currently, as I mentioned, in Turkey, we lost electricity. So things like that, and I thought, what else could happen? And thankfully, a few minutes before it came back, but I spent a few hours. But that's just one representation of the unpredictability of very many intersecting things, from the situation that impacts all around the world, the pandemic, to very many moments where we are actually more occupied with the issues that are actually disorienting us, and we want action and react. We're in a world that's changing every day, and I became a director at a time where we will not know, where I will be asking for your grace, for your understanding, as we're all navigating completely novel situations. I'm going to try to be very thoughtful in everything we do. And we are all also will be learning. So the one challenge will be, I'll be learning all the time, right? Not just directing a program, but directing a program at an environment where it's completely unstable, right? That is our reality. And creating that stability is for you, that consistency is my job, right? So that's a challenge. But at the same time, a reward and something that I'm looking forward to is I'm, I will have all of you to think with. One of the things that we've done throughout the program is whenever we're at an intersection and it's a topic or an issue or a subject area that we ourselves and our staff and leadership are not familiar with, we went to our students. Our students and our alumni and our faculty are our best asset. My approach is never that I know something, but that I have a network of people that I care about, that I can ask something. So even though I will be challenged by this instability and not being able to know at any given time. When it's time to respond, react, understand, offer courses, I have a tremendous network of people that I can talk with, think with, and worry with. So I would say consistently throughout my time at the program, that will always be my reward. That will make any challenge more doable or more endurable.
Thank you, Ekin. I'd like to go to another question from the chat, and if anybody out there has another one that you've been thinking about, but you're not sure if you should ask it, go ahead and ask it, because I think we'll have time. Don't worry about putting Ekin on the spot. It's what, 4:30 a.m. in Turkey, and she's ready to go.
No, it's let's say earlier evening.
Is it really? Oh my God, I don't even look at the time zone.
Please don't.
So this one comes from cohort 8 alum. I was not alone in feeling there were more than a few of us who came to the program with experience that made us skeptical about the path media technology, and especially social media and the power of networks, was putting us on. That was not a popular opinion within the program at the time. While I fully recognize that not all opinions are valid and not all deserve to be aired, what can the program do in the future to not disregard views that are inconvenient to its marketing and to potential students, but might be important areas of exploration? So just softball question there for you, Ekin.
Oh, very soft. No, I really appreciate your perspective, and I think one of the things, because we're a communication and leadership program, and because the content of the types of things that we teach, like Anita's outstanding listening and leadership class, and many others that actually not just teach us at the moment content, but how to interact with content and how to interact with one another. I think we've been really meaningful in creating an environment where we can hear each other. And I think we hope to continue to do so. We just have to find different pathways, spaces where we can share those opinions, because I think opinions, perspectives only grow by each other's contribution. So one thing that I would say that we're doing, and we've done in the past few years too, is in our events, we no longer try to put one perspective. In our event about AI, artificial intelligence, a couple of years ago, we tried to put together, with Hansel's leadership, people who are working in building those technologies, and people who were actively advocating against certain harmful impacts of such technology and its use in the future, right? Likewise, when we were talking about future of work last year, amongst us were folks who were really believing in the technologies that they built, although I would say everyone brought in this really reflexive energy, and we ask that intentionally to people, right? We tell our speakers, people who interact with us, that we are a critical learning community, consists of really interesting perspectives from a variety of graduate students who come from all walks of life and all around the world. So we ask them to imagine their audience before they come to us. And then we generate conversation using these events. Again, in the Future of Work event last year, half of the day was about technology and about kind of new and interesting technology that were reshaping work as we understand, as we once understood it, and shaping it into something new. And the other half of the day were all about the types of issues that comes with that. So I'm hoping that will always be a part of our design, to be able to bring a community of commentators, our own community members who represent different perspectives. And we're here to hear. So we're here to listen. And that's a priority for our program. This program is not about one thing. This program is about trying to understand many things that is within our field. So I hope that we will never isolate any of you.
Again, that was wonderful. Thank you. I especially enjoyed hearing what you said, like even just the idea that on certain parts of the day, this is who we are and this is what we are designed to do. And we're not necessarily about the content, but really about the values that we uphold within the content. I am all about values. And I think really you're speaking to a lot of what the Comm Lead community has been and stands for. So in a more broader sense, what is unique about the Comm Lead community? What makes it stand out amongst other graduate programs?
Well, the tension we just talked about by way of the question of what one of our alumni from cohort 8, I think it was, is a tension I think a lot of graduate programs of our nature face, right? We are in a place where you are all future professionals. If you've been in the program, are an alumni, we're in a professional field, you're gearing towards a professional career or research or whatever you want to do, whatever impact you want to do in the world, you're prepared for your next step by way of our program. I would say in my conversations with colleagues and in my experience of having worked in different settings, I have never seen this type of an experiment. And I will tell you what that experiment is. Today is all science analogy, filled with science analogies, labs, experiments. I studied science communication back in the day. But what we are able to do, what we're able to experiment, what we're able to experiment with is to bring together a community of people who will work in different sectors, right? That is extremely unique, actually, across programs. We bring people who want to work in the space of advocacy. We have people who want to work in nonprofits. We have people who want to work in different emerging and existing tech companies. And we have people who want to do their own initiatives, right? Do their own endeavors. So all those people come together. That's actually extremely unique, right? Those people are from all walks of life. We actually have a really, and I'm sure you're all experiencing or you experienced it. We bring in so many different things to this space, right? Experiences, backgrounds, questions, issues, things that we're passionate about. And our classes is very much a complement of that too. That's the part of the kind of duality, right? We not only teach you how to do something or how to practice or build something or work with it or a particular approach, but we also constantly question what we do. And which is, I, as an educator and as a director of the program, really believe in the value of. There's very few times in the world where you can pause and question. We'll always do, we do many things all the time, but you have a space and this is true for all of us, by the way, being a part of a learning community. You don't have to be a student. You can be a friend of the program who comes to our events. You may be you may be faculty, but you are in this really vibrant, as I mentioned earlier in my remarks, a magical space where you can think about what you're doing. And I think the intentional ways in which we create that, both for public art events, both for our classes, and any type of gathering we do, is really important. We're not necessarily, as you said, Jazz, we're value driven. We all are. All of our members of our community are value driven, our staff, our faculty, our students. So we don't want to just tell you, oh, this is the one skill you should learn to get that X number salary job. We want you to think about why you want that job and what that job does to the world you're part of. Because that type of approach will always allow you to adapt to the new environment that you're part of. And also always reflect, respond, but do whatever you do responsibly. So I really believe that that's the core of our program that I have not seen many other examples in the world. So I hope we spread this model everywhere and this approach everywhere as well.
I would love to just echo that from my perspective as a student. I mentioned earlier, but I'm going into my second year in the program as well as being on the staff. And definitely for me, having that space to interrogate things and to think critically about what you're doing, what's going on around you, and the changes that are happening in the world. I think it's easy to come into the program or any kind of graduate program as a new student, saying either like, okay, I know this is exactly what I want to learn how to do, and here's the path to being sort of accredited to do that, or as a mid-career person, kind of saying, okay, I want to level up in this way. And I think that what I see felt for myself and see for students again and again, that all changes when they have a minute to actually pause and like start thinking more deeply on the subjects that they're studying, and asking those questions why, and kind of moving more into that almost like academic mindset, even if they're still also in a professional one. So I would expect that for new students coming in, like you might find yourself surprised at how that stuff changes once you start classes or once you get, you know, a year in. It seems like that's the really transformative power of being in graduate school, is not, like Ekin said, learning how to do some specific thing, but kind of learning more what you want to be doing and the ways to do it, or even refreshing your entire framing on the world. So that was not really a question, but I want to just make sure, yeah, I want to go to this question to make sure that we have time for it. From Paolo, another cohort 8 alum, cohort 8's representing. I saw we had Katie Baltero too. I think she
Hi, cohort 8.
So we have some Flip the Media people too, going back. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad Ekin brought up the dynamic industries students come from and go on to. I wonder if she can comment on what industries can especially benefit from better communication leadership today and future graduates of this program in light of the pandemic and other crises at hand, such as systemic inequity and climate change.
Yeah, thank you, Paulo, for the question. And for those of you, Paulo is an award recipient alumni of our program and a future faculty. So thank you. Coming from you, this is a really also valuable question. All industries, right, but for different reasons. I mean, the conversations that I'm having with a variety of different industry folks in the US and beyond, in other countries, in Turkey, for example, who do communication and leadership related jobs, all reflect on how they, through the pandemic in particular, realized, and other crises as well, they realized the essential nature of communication. I mean, many companies maybe knew that, but they are now, they're 100% sure, right? This is like the core of the operation, right? Not just some, no matter what you do. And that's something that's really interesting about communication itself. It's in everything, right? A couple months ago, and so first of all, so it's in everything, and everyone is realizing this transformation, including those who are in health-related sectors, right? Many articles that came out about managing the pandemic always start with a reference to how this is not just a health, but also communication crisis. So that's that. But I think at this moment in time, it's a particular moment where not only everyone has to think about it, but we're also at a moment where everyone's understanding that we have to be driven by values and purpose. And some companies have been invested in that prior to this time. That has been their core purpose, right? How they were defined about not just doing something, but contributing to the world that they were part of and doing good in that world. And other companies have not necessarily had that orientation from the get-go. So it's a learning process for some of those organizations as they try to figure out how they can lead, how they can communicate authentically, what it is that they can do and contribute to the world, what type of impact they can have in the world, and how can they talk about it in a tasteful manner, right? I mean, some conversations today, for instance, are about how organizations, and again, this is across the scale, but market or communicate at this moment. Is it appropriate to send us something about their product, right? And I'm sure you still all, I am surprised by the amount of marketing emails that I still get that have no relationship to the moment, right? So we all have to do some sort of rethinking. And then, but we can, in this moment, maybe collaborate with those who have done this for a while. And I know that the entity you work for has done that for a while. There are others out there that have done different programs that wanted to kind of relate to the world and respond to the world, despite whatever they've done. That was a part of their mission, and we really need to understand those organizations that had that foresight and vision, and why they've done what they've done even before the crisis, right? Because we're all trying to do something, we have to. But what about those that did that even when we didn't have all of these things? And then last but not least, the very fabric of our program, social media entities, particularly communication entities. And we are having a moment of reckoning with entities like Facebook, in the sense that they are facilitating a lot of they're one of the profiting entities at this moment in time still. They made money from the pandemic. They're still providing infrastructure for people to connect, but they are having multiple communication and leadership problems, even though they're a communication company. And that has, I think, partly to do with the balancing of values and profit, and understanding that balance, and also playing a key role in areas of life that they're not necessarily maybe prepared for. For example, a polarized political landscape all around the world. So those companies like that also should think about what communication and leadership means and have conversations, and we're happy to facilitate them if they invite us. Thank you for your question, though.
All right. Oh, hold on. I think we got one more question. I want to see if we can fit it in here from Eric. And then we're going to make this the last question, and then we'll go ahead and close it off. Will there be opportunities as a Comm Lead community to volunteer for nonprofits and organizations in the area that are solving many of the issues that are getting brought to light at the moment? Would love to have more opportunities to work with our community as a team, but also truly get to know and interact with these local organizations on the ground that we may want to pursue a Comm Lead career with during or after the program. That's from Eric in cohort 19.
Mm-hmm. And Alex can speak to this with me, but we are at this moment working on this. So we are trying to layer and create multiple opportunities in different ways, paid or unpaid, for you to interact with these amazing nonprofits and organizations in our area, some of whom are really impacted by the current crisis, that really require our support and vision, and the type of community that we have now. The consultancy has done that throughout the summer, and I know that through their work, and the students involved in that initiative will be looking for, again, as they've done over the summer and in spring, kind of asking our community, can anyone help us out with this fantastic organization? But in addition to that too, we are going to continue finding ways to address the needs of these organizations, let it be bringing in their challenges to our classes, or again, building partnerships with them for our partner program. And again, we're in a moment of rethinking, because we want to serve a variety of different organizations, but also create structure around it. So Eric, to kind of give a broader, a very quick answer to your question, yes, there'll be opportunities throughout, and we have a volume of, and now we're known for the types of things that we do. So we get these requests all the time. So we will definitely have opportunities for you all to volunteer.
Perfect. All right. Well, with that, I'd like to thank Alex Stonehill for co-emceeing with me, and of course, Dr. Ekin Yasin for spending time answering our questions and sharing her vision for Comm Lead's future. We are thrilled to have you at the helm and can't wait to see what you'll accomplish. Just one announcement, the final hour Comm Lead session will be happening tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with Yolanda Barton, a Comm Lead alum who will be speaking about what it means to be a D&I consultant. Please check your emails for the details. This concludes, though, this special hour Comm Lead. If you are a part of the incoming cohort 20, we have created a special Zoom room immediately after this event for all of you to ask your questions and just to get to know Ekin as incoming Comm Lead students. The Zoom link was sent to you earlier this week. We encourage cohort 20 to move to that Zoom room now. And for the rest of you, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for your support of Comm Lead.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And feel free to send me your questions if we didn't get to them or if you didn't share it here. I shared my meeting link in the chat as well.